Welcome to Powerplayers in Business and Life with Adrienne Richardson, the show where brilliant leaders in business share powerful insider secrets and strategies to succeeding in life and business. Now, here's your host, Adrienne.
Hey everyone, I'm your host, Adrienne Richardson, founder of the Powerplayers in Business and Life podcast, where I get the honor of interviewing fascinating, big-hearted people who have brilliant minds. Today's episode is brought to you by Powerplay Media. At Powerplay Media, we create and implement strategic marketing plans for service-based business owners who want to scale their companies to 7 or 8 figures and beyond using Facebook ads. My team and I offer a premium done-for-you lead generation service and also a monthly mastermind for entrepreneurs who want to get better at managing their own Facebook ads. For more information about our services, visit wearepowerplay.com today. And now, let me tell you about today's guest. Do you know anyone that's worked with Sir Elton John or Elon Musk, sent people down to the wreck of the Titanic on the seabed, or closed museums in Florence for a private dinner party and then had Andrea Bocelli serenade them while they ate their pasta? Well, you do now. Quoted as the real-life Wizard of Oz by Forbes and Entrepreneur Magazine, Steve Sims is a best-selling author of Bluefish, The Art of Making Things Happen, and a sought-after consultant and speaker at a variety of networking groups, associations, as well as the Pentagon and Harvard twice. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
That is quite the introduction. And as I just shared with our audience, people call you the real-life Wizard of Oz, and I want to know, what the heck does that even mean?
Well, I think it means that they think I look like some kind of pervert old guy that hides behind a curtain. It was actually Forbes and Entrepreneur that called me that, because I'm the guy that they come to when they want the magical and fantastical to happen. So I've become well known as not seeing that anything can't be purchased or can't be arranged. So people come to me and they go, hey, I want to close down a museum in Florence, or I want to get married by the Pope, or I want to have a drum lesson by Guns N' Roses, and I go and make it happen.
That's crazy. Now, you've got quite an interesting background, and I know you didn't just arrive at this place in your life. So tell us how you even got started with all of this.
I think interesting background is slightly misleading. I was an East London bricklayer. My parents owned a small-time construction firm that did, tiny little extensions and patios and things like that. Nothing big. And so at the age of 15, well, prior to that, every Christmas holiday, Easter holiday, and summer holiday, I'd be helping out on some kind of building project somewhere. And then when I left school at 15, I had one day where I had nothing to do. And then the following day, I remember my dad kicking the bed at 4:30 in the morning, said, get your jeans on, we're going on the site. And that was it. I was suddenly on the building site. So my early stages, my early life was quite simply just getting dirty, getting rained on, because it was in England, and getting cold and bashed up and thinking, is this my life? And like all entrepreneurs, we've all got a different location, we've all got different stories, but we're all the same. There was that moment when we went, this can't be it. There's got to be something else out there.
No.
And so I went out trying to find it. Now, my downside was that I'm quite a big fella, and I've always been on, riding around on bikes, and I've got piercings and a goatee and stuff like that. I'm not the warm and fuzzy guy that you want knocking on your door at 6 o'clock at night trying to sell you a magazine subscription or Bible or something. So I was the guy that tried to find something that challenged and inspired me. But of course, it would mean that I'd find a new job. I'd start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and by 11 o'clock, I'd be like, this don't work for me. And I would walk out. So my mum just thought to myself that it was literally a matter of seconds before I was going to be in a prison somewhere, because I couldn't hold down a job. She just didn't realize that, again, like all entrepreneurs, we had to find that thing. And I went out trying to find it. And strangely enough, I found it working the door of a nightclub in Hong Kong. Shall I go into that?
Yeah, I was like, well, that's interesting. Yes, you can't leave us hanging there. So you find your way to the door of a nightclub in Hong Kong.
So I was in London. I was on the train on the way to another building site, and I met a friend of mine who was a stockbroker. Now, this was in the 80s, and so stockbrokers had all the girls, big red Porsches and Ferraris and cell phones that you attached to the top of a suitcase. So I thought these people were it. You know, these were the gods of the world at that time. And he said to me, he said, look, you know, you can talk to anybody, you know, which being an Irish bricklayer, I could. And he said, you know, we're looking for trainees. They're trying to set up a new office in Hong Kong. Would you be interested in going to Hong Kong? And I was thinking, I wasn't interested in going to Hong Kong. I was interested in getting away from where I was. He could have said Mars and I wouldn't have cared. But I went in and they all had these, you know, these suits on. I was wearing my dad's suit and my dad was bigger than me. So the shoulders are falling off. And they were all going in there with like, you know, I've been to Eton and I've studied this and I've studied that. And I'm thinking, I went to school and I left at 15. I've got nothing else to put on a resume. My resume was literally, you know, the size of a stamp. Was born, went on a building site, and that was it. So I rewrote my resume in the waiting room of this application, and my resume, to say that it was greater fiction than any Harry Potter movie is an understatement. And I wanted it to, I didn't want it to be full of lies, although it was. I wanted it to be blatant misuse of the language. You know, I wanted it to be so ridiculous that you wouldn't think that I was lying. You would have thought that I was just, you know, going for it kind of thing.
Right.
And I actually mentioned in there how I was a descendant of the Queen of England. And so it was so ridiculous. I thought they're going to go, I was expecting them to go, is this serious? And I'll be like, no, it's not. But hey, I was just trying to get my foot in the door and I thought this may open up a conversation.
Right.
When they called us in for the interview, they called in about 50 people at the same time. And so I never got the I had to hand it in. And then we're all in the same room and I'm thinking, well, this isn't going to happen. What I wasn't aware of is they were just transferring over 160 people to Hong Kong. And I got the impression, to be honest with you, that anyone that wanted to go to Hong Kong, they were just going to take.
Right.
So I turned up on the Saturday. I got my ticket. I flew to Hong Kong. Explaining to my wife that I was running off to Hong Kong was a funny thing. Thankfully, I'm still married to her, so that went well. But they flew me off to Hong Kong on the Friday. With the time difference, I landed on the Saturday. Got drunk on the Saturday night with them all. Got drunk on the Sunday night with them all. Did orientation on the Monday, and I was fired on the Tuesday.
Wow.
They realized I had not only a little knowledge of the market, I had no knowledge of the market. And so literally I was out one night at a bar, drinking myself silly, thinking, oh my God, my life's over. What am I going to do? What am I going to tell my wife? And the owner of the club, a lady, a mama-san as they called him, she came out and she said to me, there's a fight going on in there. Can you split it up? Because if you don't, my boys are going to come in and they're going to hurt them. And so she said, you know, if you do that, I'll pay for your drink. And bear in mind, I had no job. So I thought, yeah, all right. So I went in there. And then after that, she said, you know, do you want to work here every night? And that's how it happened.
Wow.
But here's the funny thing. What I didn't realize was it gave me a soapbox to watch humanity. When you're on the front door, everyone looks at you as a no-neck meathead just waiting for a punch-up. But I could stand there and I could recognize the girls and guys celebrating a big contract they'd just got, the hen nights, you know, the couples out on a romantic anniversary, the first daters. You can recognize these people. You actually was suddenly shown every style of personality and why they were going out for the night. You could recognize the guys going out that were going to just be trouble inside. You could recognize the girls that maybe were trying to get a sugar daddy. It was such a beautiful way of getting a vision of humanity. And what it did do is it allowed me to look at people coming towards a club and I'll be like, I want to be like him. I like the way he's treating his friends. I like the way he's treating his girlfriend or wife. I want to be him. And from there, my next step was, okay, now that I know who I want to be, I've got to find out what they're doing. So now I just had to find a reason for them to talk to me. And quite simply, because I was a doorman, I knew all where the best clubs were and all the best premieres and the best openings.
Right.
So I started telling them this. And here's the key, charging them for the access. Because I'm a great believer in if they don't pay attention.
Yeah.
And it worked. Suddenly, these people with money and wealth were talking to me. And it grew from there.
Wow. So this crazy chance trip to Hong Kong through an application that was totally exaggerated could have ended up being this complete disaster because you get fired like the day after you get there, but ended up being the greatest thing that happened to brought you on the path that you're on today.
100%. I'm not sure, because you always get these questions, if you could have gone back in time, what would you have done? Well, let's be blunt. I could have been in Hong Kong and I could have got back on a plane home and that would have been it.
Right.
I could have not taken the chance. I could have said to my wife, oh no, I don't want to leave you. We can surely make ends meet here in England. But no, you don't know the shit that you're sitting in, the crap that's falling down on your head at this moment in time could actually be the juice that propels you to greatness. You have no idea if that failure is actually the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yep. So many times I can look at everything in my life that I thought was going to be this disastrous thing that was so horrible. And every single one of them, I can look back and say, I'm so glad that happened, because that was what needed to happen in my life in order to bring me down the next path, the next chapter, the next place that I was going. And so I feel like people, I don't know why, but they don't get that, right? I guess it's hard to see it when you're in the middle of it maybe, but I always look at problems as opportunities, right? Like it's a wake up call.
Yep. Yeah, that's completely right. You can look at people, you can look at the great mistakes of the world, and you'll be surprised at how many of the greatest brands that we know today got there by making mistakes and then being able to tweak them. You see, making a mistake and this word that everyone runs away from, failing, those things are education on what went wrong. And I was in an event. I run a consultancy firm, and I had a client with me that wanted me to come to his event, and he was doing a pitch meeting, and I said, well, okay, then, but I'll just sit in the corner and pretend I'm your bag boy kind of thing. And he went into the meeting and he did the pitch, and he didn't get the contract. And he said to me, well, that was a complete waste of the day. And I said, well, no, let's reverse it. Something went wrong during that day.
Right.
But the day wasn't a waste of time, because let's be blunt, not everyone was even getting in front of those people. So you had that interest. Your promotional and presentation skills to get you into that room, that was a success. So there's a success. You learn from that. You know how to get into a room. Where did you lose it? And so we reverse engineered down to the point where he felt that he lost them. That education meant that the next time he went to a presentation, he was able to focus only on that element, because the rest of them were already successful.
Yep. That's fantastic. So I mentioned in the intro that you have this book called Bluefishing. What is bluefishing?
So when I started throwing my own parties and events in Hong Kong. And I always thought it was a bit funny to have passwords to get in. So I used to use about 5 different passwords. One of them would be name one of the Teletubbies. And so the clients would, I always believed that if you walked into a club smiling, you removed 99% of the problems. So I would ask these people stupid questions and, just had them smiling as they walked through the door. And so people would literally walk up to us and they would go, Tinky Winky. And we'd be like, in you go. And so one of the things that we had was finish this sentence, one fish, two fish, red fish. So people would literally walk up to us and go, Bluefish. We'd be like, in you go. And somehow it stuck. People would literally start contacting us going, hey, you that Bluefish company? Which is lucky because we could have been called Tinky Winky. But so we actually named a company, and I think we found the most precocious name we could to make us sound, I think it was called Trianon, which is like it's the Greek god's court. Basically the Trianon is the final say over the Greek gods and the final say over everything. Couldn't get more obnoxious than that. And people would phone us up and go, hey, is that Bluefish? And we'd be like, nope, we are Trianon. And then they would hang up on us. So we quickly realized we had to change our name back to what everyone expected. But then what happened was something weird. We always tried to surpass people's expectations. I'm a great believer that if you give people what they ask for, then you've just created a transaction. But if I listen to what you want and then give you what you need, lust for, and desire, then I've proven that I've paid attention and I've given you what you never expect. I've made your eyes open. So I would throw big surprises in my parties and locations. One of them was I wouldn't even tell people where they were until the day before. Just anything that would create that kind of, what's going to go on, that anticipation. And because I was always surpassing what people would expect, people would say to me, oh, I went to a party the other night and I bluefished the hell out of it. Or I was at a concert and I bluefished my way backstage to meet, Carrie Underwood or Taylor Swift. And all of a sudden we became an action. We became an action tip. And it was really weird.
It's really cool.
They were grabbing the word bluefish and actually making it an actionable decision. And it went from clubs and parties to working with some of the biggest companies on the planet, like the Grammys, Elton John, the New York Fashion Week, the Monaco Grand Prix, Formula One, polo, art festivals, all the way through from tiny parties to the biggest events in the world. And of course, ended up, resulting in a book, Bluefishing, the art of making things happen.
That's incredible. Just from some little rhyme.
From something that I remember sitting in the bar, and most of my stories start with, well, I was sitting in a bar, but I remember sitting there with one of the girls and guys that was with me in Hong Kong, and I said, I want to throw these parties. And I went, but I don't want people just like turning up. I want to make it a little bit more kind of cloak and dagger. They don't know where it is. They'll only know the location 24 hours before. And I wanted it to be like a James Bond thing. You had to knock on the door 3 times and say a password. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be really funny to make rich people say stupid things? So, and we literally jotted down a few of them, and that's how it became.
I love it. That is so awesome. So how do people, it's the art of making things happen, right? And I know you work with a lot of business owners and work with them on stuff like messaging and branding and marketing and different things. And I'd love to know what you think is the most important thing a business owner can do if they're in that position where they're trying to make things happen, right? And whether it's trying to land a certain client or get a certain deal done or whatever, what are some things that you recommend people do, business owners, like maybe 1 or 2 of your top things to make things happen?
All right. Well, that's beautiful. The trouble is they're very aggravating, boring things, but somehow someone's told us that they're too simple for us to actually do. The first thing that you should do with all of your clients, customers, prospects, whoever you want, is communicate. Now, that sounds silly, but we don't communicate anymore. We actually shout a message. We throw something up on Twitter and hope someone's going to respond to it. And then we go back 2 weeks later to find out if they have. That's not communication. One of the greatest things I love doing is I love doing a video message and then texting it to all of my clients. Now, this could be an offer. This could be an event. This could be a book that I'm reading. It could be anything. But I video text it to my clients for a few reasons. One, I've never spelled anything wrong in a video text. But you've got my excitement, you've got my enthusiasm, you've got, the sunny skies of Los Angeles in the background, or the Malibu beach, or whatever. So you've got some scenery, you've got some enthusiasm from me, and you've got a link to something I want you to look at. And here's one of the biggest things, apart from all of the elements that I've given you there, it can never land in your junk file, because there's no such thing as a text junk file.
Yes.
So you send out an email. We've all got these big email lists, and we send them out, and we all get giggly if we get a 19% open rate. We almost throw a freaking parade down our high street. But if you send out 100 texts, you end up with an open rate of something like 96%. And the beautiful thing is, when you send out a text and when you send out an email, and you can ask people this, what do you open up first? And they will always say, I open up my text first.
Yeah.
And you've got their attention. So I love doing video texts. I love communicating. Communicating means asking a question and being ready to answer. If you are a business owner, whatever, play a game here. Never give the client what they ask for, unless your business is McDonald's. But any other business, whenever, and this is a word that insults people. So I've given you two. I've given you the video. I've given you the texting, the communication. So there's two elements there: communication and a way of doing it. But here's the third, I would say, secret nugget for me. I'm going to give you the most offensive word in the planet, and I'm going to tell you to use it like it was running out of fashion. Okay? The most offensive word in the world is why. It bothers people. People walk in and they go, hey, I want to do this. Oh, great, I hear you. Why? And just shut up. And it just stops people because they need to explain themselves.
They feel like they have to justify.
Yeah, they do. I had people reach out to me, and it happened yesterday again. Someone reaches out to them and they're like, oh, Steve, I hear you're into this and I've got a great idea and I want to talk to you about it, and we could do some great things together. And you just respond, and this was on Facebook Messenger, I just respond with one word, why? And he got so offensive. Oh, I heard that you were a cool guy, but now I realize you're an arrogant prick. Blah. Just went off on it.
Wow.
But then the same day, same thing. We all get them, same day, same thing, same answer. Why? Person comes back with me, great question. It's because of this, and they took the time to explain more. Now I have a 1 o'clock call with them today. So if you've got someone coming in, and if you're a travel agent, hey, I want to go to Greece in summer. Why? There may be some reason that they want to go there, but there may be reasons that they shouldn't. Or maybe they should go later on in the year because of weather, or maybe there's a festival that they're not aware of. If you just sent them there and there was a massive naked festival going on, and it was a couple of old people, they may not be too happy. They may be thrilled. But either way, they should be informed as to what's going on during that time. So get used to using the word why. It's been my holy grail.
So give me an example of how someone could use that strategically in their business.
I'll give you a perfect example. When you get down to the reason, and this is very blunt, you can charge more. Okay? Because people will do things and they will commit to more when they've shown that you committed and care about them, and you're actually pushing the button. Okay? So I've worked with Elton John. This year was my last year. So I've worked with Elton John's foundation for about 8 years. And last year I had a guy contact me and he said, hey, I believe you work with Elton John. I said, yeah, I do. He said, I want to get a selfie. And I said, why? And he said, well, he's the greatest singer. He's known as Elton, and he's going to do this, and he's on his last tour. He's going to die soon, so I just want to get a photograph to have on my desk. That's literally what he said. He's going to die soon. And I was like, okay. And that was it. That was the entire reason behind it.
Wow.
So I said to him, well, thank you very much. I'll come back to you. And I didn't, for the obvious reason. About a month later, one of my team got a phone call from this guy that wanted to get a photograph with Sir Elton John. And I thought it's one of his mates making the same request because I hadn't got back to him. So I said, oh, put it through to me. So she put it through to me. This guy gets on the phone, same excitement level. Hey, how you doing? I hear you work with Elton John. Yeah, I do. Hey, I want to get a photograph with him. Okay, why do you want to do that? Well, you know, he's on his, so same thing. And I was going to hang up, and the guy's like, well, you know, he's doing his Yellow Brick Road tour, and he's on his final tour. He's not going to tour again, and he's an icon. He's one of the last icons, and well, you know, there's things. And it was that last drop off. His tone started to change, and he said, "There's things," and it was obvious he was hiding something. So I said to him, tell me why this is important. And he was quiet. And then he went, and his voice was really quiet. And he turned around and he went, when I was a kid, my dad used to take me to school and pick me up every single day. Never missed a day. Not my mum, my dad. It was our thing. And he had a cassette player in his car, and he only had one cassette, and it was Elton John. And all the way to school, we would sing Elton John. And all the way back from school, we would sing Elton John. And when he got a new car, we got new cassettes, but he would always play Elton John. He said, when I was young, I used to think it was hysterical. When I was a teenager, I hated it. He said, but it was our thing. He said, now my dad passed about 20 years ago. But every time I'm driving down the road and Elton John comes on the radio, my dad sat next to me singing. I just want to tell him that. It gave me an almighty massive why. Yeah. And we made it happen. And they met and they hugged and they got the photograph. And none of the money mattered because we had found out the reason why. We had got to the need, the desire. Now, he never thought he'd be able to stand there and hug it out with Elton. He just wanted to have a photograph with him to kind of say, hey, Dad, I met them. No. He got to tell the story to Elton. And that was a much greater way of doing things than just getting the photograph. The photograph would have meant nothing. And I swear probably the photograph still means nothing to him. The fact that he hugged it out and got to tell Elton about his dad, I think that was the thing. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's really good. And that question, you're so right. It's like, well, and different people are going to interpret it differently, right? Someone, like you said, you ask the question why, and someone can take offense to it and feel like, well, I shouldn't have to justify myself. And someone else might look at it and say, well, that's a great question. Let me tell you why. And we get to choose how we want to respond to that. And I love, you know, it made me sit here and think about how I could incorporate that in the work that I do. And, you know, when I'm working with clients, I know why they're coming to me, right? Like they want more leads, they want more sales, like they want to grow their business. I know why. And so I kind of make that assumption, and I'm just sitting here listening to you and thinking how much more powerful my connection with my clients would be and how it would allow me to over deliver in certain areas if I knew more of the why behind it. And so thank you for sharing that. I feel like a lot of people listening right now will have a big aha moment hearing that.
It's very basic, it's very trivial, and it's incredibly impactful. I'll give you one more story if I may. I have a real estate client. She's a realtor, and she contacted me, and she was moaning because this girl had contacted her, and she wanted to live in a certain street, and she wanted a 3-bedroom home. And she said, I'm throwing every 3-bedroom home at her in this street. She said, the street's not that big. She said, and she's nay on absolutely everything. You know, what do I show her? Do I show her 4-bedroom? Do I show her 2-bedroom? You know, how can I get her to close when I've literally shown her everything that's available on our street? And I said, well, talk to me through the conversation. She said, you know, she said she wanted to be on the street and she wanted 3-bedroom homes. I said, well, what was the first thing you did? She said, well, I went and got her 3-bedroom homes. I said, no, there's the mistake. You need to have asked her, why that street? At the beginning of it, it turned out that her family were born and raised probably about a couple of miles away from that street. And at the time, that was the hot street where all the rich people lived. And the mum used to drive her through that street. So embedded in her head was that when you made it, you lived on that street.
Yeah.
Now, let's be serious. 20 years can do a lot of change to where's the cool area or where's the non-cool area.
Yes.
You know, my area in London was a shithole that you would not go around later than 8 o'clock at night. Now, it's all bloody one-bedroom studio apartments and converted lofts. I couldn't afford to live there if I tried. So places change. As soon as she went back and went, hang on a minute, let's get a reset. Why this place? She was able to educate her that actually the street that she was looking for was actually in a different area today. And guess what? She sold her a 3-bedroom house in that new area.
Wow. Yeah. That's the power of why right there.
100%.
So before we wrap up, I want to ask you, thinking of, like you said, I know you work with a lot of business owners in different areas, and what do you see as the biggest challenge facing business owners today that's keeping them from growing?
Well, it's paralysis. I think a lot of people, they kind of stand there and every time anything comes out, whether it be these scary words like, oh, there's a new algorithm on Facebook or TikTok, I've got to get on TikTok, or even the coronavirus. Anytime that there's anything that can give you a good excuse, 9 times out of 10, those business owners will take it. They will be like, oh my God, I'm not doing well because it's corona. You own a print press company in Idaho. How the bloody hell does the coronavirus affect you? You find that people look for excuses to fail or to not try. So that's where I openly think the biggest problem is today, that we're looking for an excuse not to try or looking for an excuse why it failed. But again, as I said before, if you focus on the failure as the education, that's where the magic's going to come. If I do an advertising campaign and it dives, did I fail or did I just learn something that I shouldn't do in the future?
Right.
It's that kind of element. So I think a lot of people, there are 2 things. One, we love to freeze. We love to be like a deer in headlights. We love to, come up with a reason why we fail rather than a reason we should grow. And secondly, we're not communicating anymore. We are advertising, we're sending out banners, we're sending out alerts. You could stand at the top of a multi-story car park, throw off 1,000 pre-printed leaflets saying, buy my product by 4 o'clock for a 50% discount. And you would get the exact same response as if you were doing some kind of campaign, but you're not communicating. You're throwing something off a roof and hoping someone picks it up, hoping someone actions it. And that's where it's wrong. Start a conversation. Phone up your clients and ask, and this is a weird one, phone up your clients and go, hey, I've got to ask you, why do you do business with me? Question them. And there'll be things like, well, you've always done a good product. You're always loyal. Thank you. I'm just a general survey, but I wanted to know. And start questioning people on why they're actually doing business with you.
Wow. I think a lot of people would be scared of the answer.
Well,
or they'd be pleasantly surprised. It could go either way.
You can't lose. Here's the thing. If they tell you, well, you're local, but you're not the cheapest prices, then you can go, well, okay, are you looking for me to be cheaper? I can do that. I can reduce the standard of my product. Then you will win on the, they may turn around and go, well, I like doing business with you, but I've got to meet your secretary, or you don't follow up, or they're going to give you all the advice to make you better. You cannot lose on that question.
That's great. Yeah, it's great. People sometimes are afraid of the answer because they think it's going to be negative. But like you said, it now gives you the opportunity to either, number one, you realize what you are doing that's really good and you keep doing that really well. And number two, if something comes up that you're not doing great, it's an opportunity for you to improve it and continue to grow the relationship with that client, versus in the future, that may be something that divides you and then you end up losing the client and you don't even know why.
You said it better than I could have.
Yeah. That's awesome. So power players set their goals high and then they put their full focus and energy on achieving them. I'd love to know what you're working on right now that you're excited about.
So to be honest with you, no one knew who I was other than about 0.5% of the planet, working with billionaires who own things like countries. Then the book came out. We've already mentioned it, Bluefish. It's thrown me into doing a lot of speaking gigs all over the planet. It's got me into coaching. It's got me into doing events. I'm really just enjoying the growth and seeing how much impact I can actually bring forward. And I love getting my clients and my tribe uncomfortable. So recently, I took another group of entrepreneurs to prison. This has been 3 years. I've been going to a level 4 maximum security prison. If you think you're nervous when you're giving a presentation to your boss on a Monday morning, come and stand in front of a bunch of murderers and give them a presentation. You'll never be scared ever again of your life. So I love shaking people up. I love doing things differently. I've got my speakeasies. I've got Sims Distillery, which is my online membership, which is becoming an incredible amount of fun for me. I'm just enjoying the journey.
That's awesome. So what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you? How can they learn more about Steve Sims and all that you have to offer?
Well, you can jump on simsdistillery.com, or you can move over to stevedsims.com, D for dashing or dog, whatever you like. And Sims is 1M. Or if you want some freebie stuff, you can just jump onto An Entrepreneur's Advantage with Steve Sims. That's my private Facebook group. And I jump in there and talk about my wins, my losses, my mistakes, technology that's happening that I like, technology that I hate. And I just use that as my little venting board. So there's a lot of stuff I throw in there.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, Steve, I just want to thank you so much for being on the show today. I know our listeners were entertained, they were educated, they were moved and motivated, and I'm just so thankful for everything that you shared with them.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for listening to Power Players in Business and Life. Be sure to click subscribe. To learn more about Adrienne, visit www.wearepowerplay.com. We'll see you next time.